Chapter 1. The night that changed everything. I can still remember the sound of the rain that night. It was steady, calm, like the city itself was holding its breath. The kind of night where everything feels suspended. Moments, thoughts, even fear. At that time, I was just a waitress. Not special. Not brave. Just a name on a schedule. Isabella Moretti, table section 3. I served coffee, smiled at strangers, and tried to pretend that my life wasn't falling apart. I worked at a small restaurant called La Morelle. It used to be beautiful once. Red velvet booths, crystal chandeliers, mirrors that made the place look twice as big as it really was. Now the mirrors were cracked, the lights dimmed to hide the stains on the carpet, and the only thing that still sparkled was the lie we all lived every night. The regulars came for the illusion, the soft lighting, the smooth jazz, the smell of garlic and wine. But everyone knew what La Morelle really was. A front. Behind those smiles and empty plates, deals were made. Whispers were traded for cash. And at the center of it all was him. I didn't have to look to know who it was. You could feel his presence before you even saw him. Lorenzo De Luca. He never needed to raise his voice. Never needed to make a scene. Just his name carried enough weight to silence a room. He was the kind of man who looked both elegant and dangerous at the same time. A contradiction wrapped in an expensive suit. His movements were deliberate, measured, like someone who knew the world bent around his will. His eyes, cold gray, almost silver, scanned the room once, and that was enough. Everyone returned to their meals, pretending they hadn't frozen a second ago. Everyone except me. Because that night, I noticed something new. Something different. He wasn't alone. Behind him, 2 men followed, bodyguards as usual, but there was someone else, too. A tall man, in a dark trench coat, standing by the door. He didn't fit in. His suit was plain, his shoes cheap, his eyes too alert. And for a split second, those eyes met mine. It took me a moment to recognize him. But then I remembered the alley behind the restaurant. 3 weeks earlier. He had stopped me after my shift, flashing a badge, so fast I barely saw it. "If he ever comes again," he'd said, his voice low, urgent, "give me a sign. Anything. I'll know." And now, here he was, standing in the same room as Lorenzo De Luca, the most feared man in the city. I froze. Every instinct told me to look away, to pretend I didn't recognize him. But my hands, they started trembling. I turned to the espresso machine, tried to steady myself. Coffee grounds, steam, the hiss of boiling water, small sounds that kept me from thinking too much. Then I looked up again. Lorenzo was seated in his usual corner booth, his eyes half-lidded, his fingers slowly turning a silver lighter in his hand. That lighter, engraved with a single letter L, was infamous. It was said that every time he lit it, someone disappeared. I tried to breathe, to focus, but my thoughts were racing faster than the rain outside. What was the cop thinking? Why was he here of all nights? Was this an arrest, or a death wish? As I carried the tray to table 3, my hand shook so badly that the cups rattled. I told myself it was just another night, just another customer. But when I turned around, Lorenzo's gaze caught mine. It wasn't anger. It wasn't curiosity. It was something far worse. He knew. In that moment, I felt like I was standing at the edge of something enormous. A line you can't uncross. And yet, part of me wanted to see what would happen if I did. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe madness. But I decided to make the signal. It was subtle. Barely noticeable. Just one small movement, turning the silver spoon upside down on the edge of the table. Our code. It meant leave now. You're in danger. I set the tray down, forced a smile, and walked away. I didn't dare look back. Not at Lorenzo. Not at the man I just warned. My pulse was so loud in my ears I almost didn't hear the voice behind me. "Isabella!" He said my name like a question. Calm. Smooth, too calm. I turned around. He was still seated, his hands resting lightly on the table, eyes locked on mine. That faint smile played on his lips again, the kind that hides everything it means. "Lorenzo, interesting way to serve coffee tonight." Every sound in the restaurant vanished. Even the rain outside seemed to pause. I didn't answer. Couldn't. Because at that moment, I realized the truth. He had seen the signal. And worse, he had understood it. That was the night my life changed forever. The night when a simple act of courage, became a death sentence. The night I learned that silence could scream louder than words. Would you like me to continue with Chapter 2? 10 minutes. Next, keeping the same cinematic and emotional rhythm with soundscape direction, pauses, and internal narration. That way, the whole story stays consistent for your YouTube format. Clapperboard Chapter 2. After that moment, everything changed. I could feel it in the air. Heavy, electric, like the seconds before lightning strikes. No one spoke, but every eye darted between him and me. Lorenzo didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. One glance from him was enough to make grown men forget how to breathe. He leaned back in his chair, his fingers tapping once, softly on the table. Just once, a signal his men knew well. The room seemed to shrink. The warmth disappeared, replaced by cold precision. I tried to focus on the counter, on the sound of the coffee machine, on anything that wasn't his stare burning into my back. My heart felt too loud. I told myself to act normal, to keep working, to pretend I hadn't just invited death into my own home. The man in the trench coat, the officer, was still sitting 2 tables away. He was trying not to move, but I could see his jaw tighten, his eyes dart to the exit. He'd seen the signal. He understood, but it was too late. One of Lorenzo's men walked toward him. The officer forced a smile, reached for his glass. His voice was calm, too calm. Officer, didn't expect such service for a night like this. And then it happened. Everyone in the room froze. No one dared to move, not even breathe. That lighter, it was never just a habit. It was his way of saying, a decision has been made. The officer's hand twitched toward his pocket, maybe for a badge, maybe for a gun, but he never got the chance. 2 men grabbed him hard. The table crashed. Glass shattered. Someone screamed. And just like that, the music stopped. Narration, voice breaking slightly. I couldn't look away. They pulled him toward the back, through the kitchen door. The same kitchen where I'd spent every night for 3 years, now turned into a place I never wanted to see again. Lorenzo didn't move. He just sat there, flame still burning between his fingers, eyes half closed, like a priest saying a prayer before confession. The flame flickers out. A click. Silence. And then, he looked at me again. Camera close-up, Isabella's eyes wide, frozen. Slow zoom in on Lorenzo's unreadable expression. Lorenzo, quietly, you can go home, Isabella. Just that. No threats. No anger. A dismissal. But it felt like the words carried a promise, one that would follow me wherever I went. Sound fades to soft rain. Door opens. The camera follows Isabella stepping out into the night. The rain was colder than I remembered. It hit my face in sharp drops, soaking my uniform, but I didn't care. I started walking, fast, then faster, until the restaurant lights disappeared behind me. I didn't even realize I was crying until the tears mixed with the rain. I kept seeing the man's face in my mind, the officer. He wasn't supposed to die. He said he wanted justice. But in this city, justice was just another word people used before disappearing. When I reached my small apartment, my hands were still shaking. I closed the door, locked it twice, then slid down to the floor. I could still hear his voice in my head. Interesting way to serve coffee. The way he said it. Calm, detached, like he already knew everything. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that lighter. That single flicker of flame that decided who lived and who didn't. The next morning, I went back to La Morelle. I don't even know why. Maybe because pretending life was normal was easier than accepting what I'd done. But when I got there, the restaurant was closed. No music. No customers. Just silence. The chairs were stacked. The floor still wet. And on the counter, where I always left my order pad, there was a single object waiting for me. Narration, soft, trembling. My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't just any lighter. It was his. There was no note, no message. Just that, as if he was saying, I saw what you did, and I'm not finished with you yet. I held it in my hand, feeling its weight, cold, smooth, impossible to ignore. I wanted to throw it away, but I couldn't, because somehow I knew that wasn't a warning. It was an invitation. That was the first time I understood the truth about Lorenzo De Luca. He didn't rule the city with fear. He ruled it with silence. And once you became part of that silence, You could never escape it. Clapperboard Chapter 3. The sun never really rose that morning. It just appeared behind the clouds, pale, weak, like it didn't want to be part of what had happened. I walked for hours before I realized I still had his lighter in my hand. Lorenzo De Luca's lighter, the symbol of a death sentence, and a message I didn't understand. When I finally reached my apartment, I set it on the counter. It looked small there, harmless, almost beautiful. But every time I looked at it, I heard that click again. That single flick of fire before everything went silent. I tried to convince myself it was just a warning. That he wanted me to remember my place. That maybe he'd already forgotten me. But deep down, I knew better. Men like Lorenzo don't forget. That afternoon, I went back to work. Yes, I actually went back. Because when you live in a city like ours, pretending nothing happened is the only way to survive. The restaurant was open again. Same tables, same smells, same jazz. As if the night before had been erased. Except it hadn't. People were whispering. Rumors spread faster than smoke in the city. They said a man disappeared. They said the boss himself was seen leaving the kitchen long after midnight. And then, they said my name. Narration, shaken, quiet. I knew what whispers could do. In a place like La Morelle, words could kill just as easily as bullets. I went to the back to breathe. The kitchen smelled of metal and burnt coffee. That's when I saw him. Camera pans, Lorenzo, standing by the storage door, reading a newspaper. His expression unreadable. He was alone. No guards. Just him. He looked up, eyes locking with mine like he'd been waiting. And then he said, so calmly it chilled me, Lorenzo, you came back. I wanted to say something, anything. But my voice refused to work. He folded the newspaper, slowly setting it aside. The sound of that paper folding felt louder than thunder. Lorenzo, softly, do you know what I hate most, Isabella? I didn't answer. Noise. People who talk too much. People who think silence means safety. They don't understand. Silence can be dangerous, too. He steps closer. His shoes echo softly against the tile. She doesn't move. I left you my lighter for a reason, he said. To remind you that I saw everything. Every gesture. Every word unsaid. Camera close up. His hand brushing the counter, eyes locked on hers. But you didn't run. You came back. That tells me something about you. Pause. Rain faintly returns outside, thunder distant. It tells me you understand the code. Narration internal. The code. Everyone in his world lived by it, but few survived it. It wasn't written anywhere, but it ruled everything. Cut to imagery. Flashbacks of quiet glances, unspoken exchanges, shadows behind doors. The code of silence. No words. No betrayals. No explanations. Only gestures and consequences. Music fades into a soft string section, haunting and delicate. Lorenzo, calmly, the man you tried to protect. He wasn't who you thought. Camera zooms on her expression, confusion, fear. He worked for me once. He sold names, locations, people. He wasn't there to arrest me, Isabella. He was there to finish a deal, one that would have cost innocent lives. Silence. She lowers her gaze, voice trembling. Isabella, softly. Then why kill him here? A faint smirk touches his lips. He turns slightly, eyes cold but calm. Lorenzo, because betrayal deserves witnesses. Soft thunder. Her breath catches. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. Lorenzo, quietly, if you want to survive here, don't speak of what you saw. Not to anyone. Not even yourself. Door opens. The faint chime of the restaurant bell echoes as he exits. And then he was gone. Camera follows her slowly sitting down, hand covering her face. Music swells, faintly. Narration, reflective, hushed. I sat there for a long time after he left. The words echoed in my head, not even yourself. How do you silence your own memories? How do you stop your mind from replaying the moment you decided to signal a man's death? Camera cuts to night. Isabella sits by her apartment window, staring at the city lights flickering below. Days passed. Customers came and went. But every night, I saw his face, that unreadable calm, that quiet threat behind his words. And yet, something inside me changed. Fear, maybe. Or fascination. It's strange how the people you fear most become the ones who occupy your thoughts. Music turns slower, intimate. Piano and cello blend softly. I started noticing things I hadn't before. The way his men moved only when he nodded. The way he'd pause before answering, as if measuring the weight of every word. The way he seemed to see everything. One evening, I was cleaning tables after closing. The rain had stopped, the streets outside glowed under the streetlights. And there it was again, the sound of that lighter. Click! Small flame. Soft echo. He was sitting in the corner, alone. Watching me. He said nothing. Just watch the flame, then let it die. Soft whisper of the flame extinguishing. Her breath slows. I didn't need words. That was the signal. And in that silent moment, I understood something terrifying. I was already part of his world. I just hadn't realized it yet. Music swells. The camera pans out slowly from the restaurant window, showing the empty tables, the faint flicker of the lighter left on the counter. Narration, soft, final for chapter. A single gesture started it all. A silent signal that chained me to a man whose power was built on silence itself. And I knew, the next time he lit that flame, it wouldn't just be a warning. Clapperboard Chapter 4, The Interruption. Narration, soft, reflective. It's strange how quickly silence becomes normal. After what happened, after the warning, after his words, life went on as if nothing had changed. But something had changed. Me. The fear that once kept me quiet had turned into something else. Not courage, but curiosity. I wanted to understand him. The way he moved, the things he didn't say, the choices he made that no one dared question. Camera. Isabella cleaning tables at night, the restaurant half empty, candlelight flickering on her face. Narration. Quiet, almost a whisper. Lorenzo came in every night that week. Always at the same time. Always at the same table. No one else dared to sit there. His men came in first, checking exits, scanning faces, and then he appeared. Calm, controlled, untouchable. He never ordered much. Sometimes just coffee. Sometimes nothing at all. He'd just sit there, eyes fixed on something distant. And for reasons I still can't explain, I started to feel safe when he was there. Music slows to a faint piano line, gentle but uneasy. One night, a Thursday, the storm outside was heavier than usual. Thunder rattled the windows, and the city lights blurred behind sheets of rain. It was almost closing time when the door opened. Sound. Bell above the door jingles. Footsteps. Wet shoes on the floor. At first, I thought it was one of his men. But then I saw the stranger, tall, dripping wet, moving too fast. He didn't stop at the counter. He didn't look at anyone. He went straight toward Lorenzo's table. Camera shifts to slow motion. Lorenzo doesn't move. His eyes lift slowly, expression unreadable. I froze. My instinct screamed. Something was wrong. The stranger's coat was heavy. His right hand was inside his pocket. And Lorenzo, he didn't flinch. He just looked at the man, almost bored, and said, "Lorenzo, softly, that's close enough." Music drops to silence. Sound, the faint clicking of a lighter. He flicked the lighter open. The tiny flame glowed between them. "Lorenzo, if you pull that trigger, you'll never leave this room alive." The man hesitated, and in that split second, I saw his face, fear, confusion, regret. He wasn't a killer. He was desperate. "Stranger," trembling, "you ruined my brother. You made him disappear." Lorenzo didn't deny it. He just sighed. "Lorenzo, quiet. Your brother made his choices. You should have learned from them." Camera. The stranger's shaking hand lowers slowly. The rain outside grows louder, thunder rolling closer. Then, one of Lorenzo's men stepped behind him. The gun clattered to the floor. It was over in seconds. Sound. Gun slides across the floor. Then silence. But this time, something was different. Lorenzo didn't look satisfied. He looked tired. Close up, his fingers rubbing his temples, the lighter closing with a soft click. Narration. Soft, reflective. For the first time since I met him, I saw something in his eyes that I didn't expect. Exhaustion. A man who'd seen too much. A man who carried too many ghosts. He stood, buttoned his coat, and said to his men, "Lorenzo, let him go." Camera. Shocked glances between bodyguards. One hesitates. Guard. But sir. Lorenzo, firmly, I said, let him go. And they did. The stranger stumbled out into the rain, half in disbelief, half in fear. Door closes. The bell rings softly. Silence again. Lorenzo turned toward me. Our eyes met for a moment that felt too long. Lorenzo, quietly, you see, Isabella, not every crime needs punishment. Some people destroy themselves just fine. Soft piano resumes, low and melancholic. He walked past me, slow and deliberate. When he reached the door, he paused, rain leaking through the cracks, lightning flashing outside, and said one more thing. Lorenzo, you stayed calm. Most people don't. That's why I keep you here. Door opens. Sound, heavy rain, fading footsteps outside. Narration, trembling, uncertain. Keep me here. Those words echoed in my mind long after he left. They sounded like protection and a threat at the same time. From that night on, I wasn't just a waitress anymore. I was part of something I didn't understand. The silence had chosen me. Scene transition. Later that night, Isabella alone, cleaning the last table. Candlelight flickers, the restaurant empty. As I wiped the last glass, I noticed something under the saucer at Lorenzo's table. A small folded napkin. I opened it. Just one word written in perfect, precise handwriting. Stay. Soft gasp. Her eyes widen. Music stops briefly, then returns faintly. Narration quiet. I didn't know if it was a warning or a command. But I obeyed. That's the thing about silence. It doesn't ask. It simply waits until you do what it wants. Camera pans out slowly. Rain still falls outside. The restaurant lights dim one by one. And somewhere in the distance, a car door slams. A lighter flicks open again. Click. Flame. Fade to black. Narration. Final line for the chapter. That was the interruption. Not of a life, but of everything I thought I understood about loyalty, fear, and the man I was slowly beginning to see not as a monster, but as a mystery. Chapter 5, The Choice. Narration, soft, thoughtful. Days turned into weeks. The world outside went on. Cars passing, people laughing, the city pretending everything was fine. But inside the restaurant, something had changed. It wasn't visible. It wasn't loud. It was in the air. In the way the waiters spoke more carefully. In the way conversations stopped whenever Lorenzo's name was mentioned. And in the way I started to feel noticed. Every night, I waited for him. Not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't stop myself. That note, stay with me. It wasn't just paper anymore. It felt like a command written on my skin. I told myself I was being paranoid, that he had dozens of people working for him, dozens of women far braver than me. But each night he came back, he looked straight at me. And every time I looked back, it wasn't love. Not then. It was recognition. Two people who'd both seen something they weren't supposed to. One evening, after closing, I found him sitting alone again. No guards. No entourage. Just him. The lights were low, shadows stretching long across the tables. He was reading something, an old photograph, creased, worn. Music slows. The sound of distant thunder returns. I wanted to ignore it, to walk past him quietly, but my voice came out before I could stop it. Isabella, you shouldn't be here alone. He looks up slowly, eyes tired but sharp. Lorenzo, softly, neither should you. Silence. She sets down a glass of water in front of him. He watched the glass, then looked up again, as if studying my face for something invisible. Lorenzo, do you know what happens to people who stay too close to this life, Isabella? I hesitated, then whispered. Isabella, they disappear. He smiled faintly. Lorenzo, not always. Some learn to adapt. Lorenzo, I lost someone once because they didn't listen. They thought they could walk away whenever they wanted. But this world doesn't forgive freedom. Isabella, why are you telling me this? He didn't answer right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower, almost human. Lorenzo, because I see the same look in your eyes. He stood, leaving a folded envelope on the table. Lorenzo, you have a choice now. What's inside will buy you a new life, somewhere far from here. If you take it, you leave tonight. If you stay for good. I wanted to grab it, to run, to never look back. But my body wouldn't move. Something in his eyes kept me still. Something that whispered, Don't leave yet. He turned to go, stopping only when I said, Isabella, why me? He didn't turn around. Lorenzo, because you didn't look away. I sat there for what felt like hours, the envelope still on the table. The rain outside sounded heavier, almost impatient. Inside the envelope was everything I had ever wanted: freedom, escape, safety. But all I could think about was him. The streets glowed wet with rain. Every shadow felt like it was watching me. Every echo sounded like his footsteps. When I reached my apartment, I didn't open the envelope. I placed it on the kitchen counter, next to my old clock, and sat in silence. For the first time in years, I cried, not from fear or pain, but because I realized something terrifying. I didn't want to leave. Narration whisper. It wasn't love, not yet. It was something darker. Something that tied me to him in ways I couldn't understand. The next morning, I went back to the restaurant. The envelope was still in my purse, unopened. Everything looked the same. The smell of coffee, the clinking of dishes, but everyone was quieter. Something had happened. I saw Marco, one of Lorenzo's men, standing near the kitchen. His eyes met mine briefly, and then he said softly, Marco, he asked for you. I froze. Isabella, narrating, asked for me. Marco, he's at the house. Said it was important. I should have said no. I should have turned around, walked out the door, disappeared like the others. But instead I nodded. Isabella, tell him I'll come. That was the moment I made my choice. Not with words, not with reason, but with silence. Because silence was safer than truth. And deep down I knew. The moment I stepped into his world, there'd be no turning back. Narration, final, somber. That envelope is still somewhere in my drawer. Unopened. A life I never lived. But that night, when I agreed to see him, I didn't choose safety. I chose him. And that choice changed everything. Music swells softly, then fades into the sound of rain and footsteps approaching a large, echoing door. Fade out. End of chapter 5. Decide que continue como capítulo 6. The House of Glass, como mesma dura que o intensidade, mostrando o primero encontro íntimo y perigoso entre Isabella y Lorenzo no caserio deli, onde as intencos deli cum cama ficar mais ambiguas y o perigo mais real? Você diz. Sim. O chat GPT diz. Perfido. A seguir esto o capítulo 6, The House of Glass, expanded o para cerca de 10 minutos de narrativa cinematográfica, narrado enteramente pela própria Isabella. A atmosfera aqui mistura misterio, tenseo emotionally fascinio, a medida que ela se aproxima do mundo do chief de Mafia pela primeira vez. Clapperboard Chapter 6, The House of Glass. Soft hum of an engine. Rain tapping against car windows. The sound of city traffic fading into silence as the car drives away from the lights. Narration, soft, uncertain. The drive felt longer than it should have. No one spoke. Marco was behind the wheel, his face unreadable, eyes fixed on the road ahead. The city faded in the rearview mirror, replaced by trees, shadows, and fog curling over the hills. I didn't ask where we were going. I didn't need to. Wherever he was, that's where we were headed. When we finally stopped, I saw it. A mansion built almost entirely of glass and steel. Cold. Silent. Impossibly beautiful. It stood on a hill overlooking the city like a ghost that refused to fade. Narration soft. They called it the House of Glass. Lorenzo's private world. No one entered unless invited, and no one left unchanged. Marco led me through a hallway that seemed endless, walls made of glass, showing the storm raging outside. Lightning flashed, and for a moment, my reflection looked like someone else's. Someone braver. Someone trapped. We stopped in front of a set of double doors. Marco knocked once. Marco, she's here. A pause. Then that voice, calm, deep, dangerous. Lorenzo, let her in. He was standing by the window, hands behind his back, watching the rain. No guards. No weapons. Just him. For a moment, he didn't turn around. He just said, almost gently, Lorenzo, you came. Isabella, softly you asked for me. He turned then, slowly, as if testing the air between us. Lorenzo, most people don't come when I ask. They run. Isabella, maybe I'm not most people. He smiled faintly, that same smile that never reached his eyes. He poured 2 glasses of wine and handed one to me. The glass was cold in my hands. Lorenzo, do you believe in fate, Isabella? I hesitated. Isabella, I believe in choices. Lorenzo, nodding, so do I. But sometimes they lead us to places we never meant to find. He gestured to a chair by the fire. The room smelled of smoke and rain and something else, something metallic, like old secrets. Camera, Isabella sitting cautiously, the fire reflecting on the glass walls around them. Lorenzo, when I first saw you, you weren't afraid. You should have been. Isabella, maybe I was. I just didn't show it. Lorenzo, that's what I liked about you. Soft pause. The crackling of fire fills the silence. Narration, reflective. His words lingered in the air like smoke. Compliment or warning, I couldn't tell. Maybe it was both. He walked closer, stopping only inches away. The air shifted, not dangerous, but heavy. Lorenzo, quietly, you think I'm a monster, don't you? I looked at him, unsure how to answer. Isabella, I think you're a man who's done terrible things. He chuckled, low, tired, almost sad. Lorenzo, you're not wrong. He turned toward the fire, the light flickering across the scars on his hands. Lorenzo, do you want to know what this place really is? She stays silent. Lorenzo, it's not a home. It's a cage made of glass, so I can see the world I built, but never touch it. Camera, lightning flashes outside, the glass walls shimmering like water. Isabella, then why stay here? Lorenzo, because sometimes the cage feels safer than freedom. Narration, softly, voice trembling. Something inside me broke then, the image I'd built of him, the one that fit neatly into good and evil. He wasn't just a monster. He was a man haunted by everything he'd done and everyone he'd lost. I didn't say anything. I just reached out and placed the envelope, his envelope, on the table between us. Isabella, I didn't take it. He looked at it, then at me. Lorenzo, why not? Isabella, because I didn't want to disappear. Lorenzo, softly, then you understand. You've already made your choice. He walked past me then to the window. His reflection merged with the storm outside, one man, divided by glass. Lorenzo, people think I built this house to show my power. But the truth is, it's the only place where I can be weak. He turned back to me one last time. Lorenzo, stay tonight. Not because I command it, but because I don't want to be alone. I should have said no. I should have walked out into the storm. But I didn't. Narration, softly. I stayed. Not because I trusted him, but because for the first time I saw the man beneath the mask, and I wanted to understand the silence that surrounded him. That night I didn't sleep. I lay awake in a room of glass, listening to the storm, wondering if I was the guest. Or the prisoner. Sound of thunder. Fade to silence. Narration, final, low and emotional. It was the night I stopped being a waitress and became part of his world, a world that reflected everything. Except mercy. Music swells softly, fading into the sound of rain and a faint echo of a heartbeat. Fade out. End of chapter 6. KRKU continue como capítulo 7, The Confession. Onde Lorenzo comica revelar partes sombrias do SCU pasado, y Isabella descubrirá segredo que muda completamente o modo como ella o vi. Você diz. Sim. O ChatGPT diz. Perfido. A seguir este o capítulo 7, The Confession. Narrado inteiramente pela própria Isabella, no mesmo formato cinematográfico e emocional, expandido para cerca de 10 minutos de narrativa fluida como audiolivro de suspense e drama psicológico. Clapperboard Chapter 7, The Confession. Soft piano echoes through the opening, slow, hesitant, almost fragile. The faint sound of morning rain against the glass walls. Narration, soft, reflective. I woke before dawn. The storm had stopped, leaving behind a silence that felt unnatural, too still, too heavy. The world outside the glass house was pale and washed clean. But inside, the air still carried last night's shadows. Lorenzo hadn't slept. I found him in the same chair by the window, the same glass of untouched wine beside him. He looked like he'd been staring at the horizon for hours, waiting for something that would never come. Isabella, Softly, you've been awake all night. Lorenzo, without looking at her, sleep doesn't come easy for men like me. Lorenzo, when you've buried enough ghosts, they start digging their way back. I didn't know what to say. Something in his voice made me realize he wasn't talking to me. He was talking to the memories that haunted him. He stood, walked to the fireplace, and stared into the embers. Lorenzo, there's something you should know about me, Isabella. Before you decide what kind of man I am. Isabella, you don't owe me an explanation. He smiled faintly. Lorenzo, maybe not, but I owe it to myself. Lorenzo, when I was young, I thought control was everything. That if I built enough walls, no one could hurt me. So I built an empire, brick by brick. And somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing faces and started seeing threats. Soft string motif begins, almost like a memory resurfacing. Lorenzo, there was a man once, my closest friend. We grew up together. He knew everything about me. My secrets, my fears, my weakness. He pauses, voice tight. Lorenzo, he betrayed me. Sold me out to a rival family. And he exhales slowly. I didn't forgive him. I made sure he disappeared. Camera cuts to Isabella's stunned face. The rain outside begins again, softly. Isabella whispering, you killed him. He doesn't answer. Instead, he looks at her with eyes that say more than words ever could. Lorenzo, quietly, it doesn't matter how many times you tell yourself it was justified. The ghosts still find you. He turns away. His hands tremble slightly as he pours himself another drink. Narration, softly. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to see him as the monster everyone warned me about. But standing there, I saw something else. A man who'd been consumed by his own decisions. She takes a step closer. Isabella, why tell me this? Lorenzo, because you're still here. And I need you to understand what that means. He finally meets her eyes. Lorenzo, everyone who stays near me ends up with blood on their hands, even if it's not their own. Music deepens, a low heartbeat-like rhythm beneath his voice. Isabella, then why let me stay? He smiles again, not cruelly, but with something that looks almost like regret. Lorenzo, because you remind me of a part of myself that died a long time ago. A long silence. The sound of the rain grows heavier, echoing in the glass walls. Narration, soft, introspective. Something inside me shifted. Fear, sympathy, fascination, they blurred into one unbearable emotion. I realized that every time he looked at me, he wasn't seeing me. He was seeing someone else. Someone he'd lost. Camera pans, slowly to the photograph she glimpsed before, now resting on the table near the fire. I walked over and picked it up. It was a picture of a young woman, long dark hair, gentle smile, standing beside him years ago. My heart stopped. She looked like me. Music freezes. A faint ringing sound, like realization breaking through. Isabella whispering, who is she? He didn't move, didn't breathe. Lorenzo, low, her name was Elena. Camera close up, his eyes closing, pain etched across his face. Lorenzo, she was my wife. Silence. Isabella, what happened to her? Lorenzo, after a long pause, she tried to save me from this life, and it killed her. The rain roars against the glass. Isabella's hand trembles as she sets the photo down. Narration, voice breaking. In that moment, everything fell into place, the way he looked at me, the way he spoke, the note that said stay. He wasn't protecting me. He was replacing her. Soft violin fades in, mournful, distant. I felt cold, even in the heat of the fire. I wanted to scream, to run, to break the glass around us. But instead I whispered, Isabella, I'm not her. He nodded, eyes hollow. Lorenzo, I know. He looks down, voice trembling for the first time. Lorenzo, but sometimes I wish you were. Silence stretches painfully long. The rain slows again, dripping in rhythm with the clock on the wall. Narration, softly fading. That was his confession. Not the crimes, not the blood, but the truth that haunted him most. That he couldn't tell the difference between love and memory. Camera. Isabella walks toward the door, pauses, looks back one last time. Isabella, quietly, you can't keep ghosts alive, Lorenzo. Lorenzo, softly, and yet here you are. Her breath catches. Music swells one last time, then fades to silence. Narration, final line. I left that room knowing one thing. He wasn't my savior. He was my mirror. And every secret he confessed brought me closer to something I could no longer deny. I was already part of his darkness. Chapter 8. The Warning. Soft wind echoes outside. The storm has passed, but the air still carries the weight of something unfinished. Narration, calm, reflective. The morning after his confession, the world felt fragile, as if every sound, every heartbeat, every breath could shatter what little peace we had left. Lorenzo avoided me all day. He buried himself in phone calls, meetings, and silence. And I did what I always did when I didn't know what to feel. I wandered. Camera. Isabella walks through the mansion's long marble corridor, sunlight streaming through the tall windows. Every step echoed. The walls felt colder than usual, or maybe it was just me. Every painting, every locked door, every quiet voice in another room seemed to whisper things I wasn't meant to hear. Then I found her. Soft note, a sudden shift in tone. She was standing at the end of the hallway, the woman who had served coffee that first morning I'd arrived. Her name was Lucia. I'd barely noticed her before, but now her eyes caught mine, sharp, knowing, and full of something I couldn't read. Lucia, low voice. Miss Isabella, we need to talk. Camera zooms in slightly, a flicker of unease. Isabella, is something wrong? She looked around nervously before taking a step closer. Lucia, whispering, you shouldn't be here. Not anymore. Pause. Isabella frowns, uncertain. Isabella, what do you mean? Lucia's hands trembled slightly as she handed me something. A folded piece of paper, old and worn at the edges. Lucia, don't let him see you reading this. And whatever you do, don't trust anyone who says they work for him. Music swells, a soft heartbeat rhythm beneath the dialogue. Before I could ask anything, she walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the hallway. Narration. I unfolded the paper with shaking fingers. The handwriting was rushed, desperate. He's not the only one watching you. Leave before it's too late. My breath caught. Camera. Isabella staring at the note, heart pounding. At first, I thought it was some kind of cruel joke, maybe from one of Lorenzo's enemies trying to get into my head. But then, I noticed a small symbol in the corner of the paper. A circle crossed by two lines, the same insignia engraved on the box in Lorenzo's study. The one he said I should never touch. Low, ominous tone built slowly. I felt the cold spread through me like smoke. That symbol, I had seen it once more, carved faintly on the door of the east wing, the part of the house that was always locked. That was when I realized. I wasn't imagining it. There were parts of his place Lorenzo didn't want me to see. And now, someone inside the house wanted me gone. Scene transition. Night falls. Isabella sits in her room, reading the note again under the dim light of a bedside lamp. Narration, whispering. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Paranoia, curiosity, fear blending into something dangerous. But the unease wouldn't fade. Then came the knock. Soft knock echoes through the silence. Isabella's head turns. Isabella, who is it? Voice muffled, it's me. It was Lorenzo. Even through the door, his voice sounded strained. She hesitates before opening the door. He stands there, hair damp, tie loosened, eyes tired. Lorenzo, quietly, you've been avoiding me. Isabella, you've been busy. He studies her face carefully, his gaze sharp, as if searching for a lie. Lorenzo, someone talked to you today, didn't they? Camera tightens. Her pulse quickens. Isabella, hesitant, no. Why? He takes a slow step forward, his presence overwhelming. Lorenzo, because you look like you've seen a ghost. Silence. She lowers her eyes. He's too close now, his scent, faint smoke and rain filling the air. Isabella, maybe I have. A pause. His jaw tightens slightly. Lorenzo, whatever you think you know, forget it. Isabella, defiant, forget that someone's warning me to leave. Forget that I'm being watched. He freezes. The air between them turns sharp. Lorenzo, low, dangerous. Who told you that? Isabella, you tell me. Music intensifies. Tension rises. He grabs her arm, gently but firmly. Lorenzo, you don't understand what's happening. There are people who want to destroy me, and they'll use you to do it. Isabella, whispering, then why keep me here? He hesitates, eyes flickering with emotion. Lorenzo, because if you leave, they'll find you first. Silence. Isabella's heart pounds. The threat in his words is real, not against her, but for her. Narration. In that moment, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't a prisoner out of control. I was a shield, a target meant to draw someone else's fire. Camera pans to the window. A shadow moves briefly outside, watching. Lorenzo moves to the curtains, pulls them shut. His voice drops to a whisper. Lorenzo, you're not safe here, but you're safer than anywhere else. Trust me, Isabella. Soft piano begins again. Emotional, conflicted. Isabella, quietly, you keep saying that. But every time you do, I feel less safe. He turns to her, something breaking in his expression. Lorenzo, I know. A long silence. The clock ticks. Then, he walks toward the door, his voice low but steady. Lorenzo, pack your things. Tomorrow we're leaving the house. Her eyes widen. Isabella, where are we going? He looks back, and for the first time, she sees fear in his eyes. Lorenzo, somewhere they can't find us. Music swells, tension mixed with emotion. The rain starts again outside, soft but relentless. Narration, soft, introspective. That night I didn't sleep. The walls felt alive with whispers, the shadows moving like they had eyes. And somewhere in the dark, I knew Lucia was right. The warning wasn't just about danger. It was about the truth that would follow me wherever we went. Camera, close up on Isabella folding the note, hiding it inside her jacket. She looks out the window one last time. Narration, final line. I thought running away would save me, but all it did was bring me closer to the storm waiting beyond the gates. Chapter 9, The Escape. Soundscape. The soft rustle of clothes being packed, distant thunder rolling over the horizon, the ticking of a clock marking 3 a.m. Narration, whispered, tense. I didn't know what to take. When you run for your life, every item feels both useless and essential. My hands trembled as I folded the same shirt 3 times before realizing I didn't need it. What could possibly protect me now? A change of clothes, or the truth I didn't yet understand? Camera. Isabella packs a small bag, glancing nervously at the window. Outside, rain drizzles over the dark garden. The house was silent. Too silent. Even the guards who normally patrolled the halls were gone. Lorenzo had arranged this carefully, too carefully. Soft footsteps echo. A door creaks open. It's him. He entered the room without knocking. His shirt sleeves rolled up, the top buttons undone. He looked exhausted and dangerous. Lorenzo, we don't have much time. Are you ready? Isabella, quietly, ready for what exactly? Lorenzo, for the only chance we have. He takes her bag, checks the hallway before motioning her to follow. Narration. I didn't ask where we were going. I didn't even ask why. Some part of me, the part that had already given up on safety, trusted him. Scene. They move through the corridor, lights flickering. A muffled storm outside. The mansion looked different at night. Every shadow seemed alive, watching us. Every echo of our footsteps sounded like someone following close behind. When we reached the back entrance, a black car waited, engine running, headlights off. Marco stood beside it, his expression unreadable. Marco. Everything's clear for now. Lorenzo. Good. No stops until we reach the coast. He opens the door for Isabella, his voice low but urgent. Lorenzo, stay down. Don't look back. Camera. Isabella slides into the back seat. Lorenzo joins her. The car pulls away. Narration, soft, reflective. The rain came harder as we left the gates behind. I watched the mansion disappear into the darkness, that enormous cage that had somehow begun to feel like home. The headlights carved thin paths of light through the storm. No one spoke. The silence between us was thick, like the calm before something terrible. A tense hum in the background, the low roar of the engine blending with the storm. I wanted to ask him what was happening, who was chasing us. Why now, why me? But every time I looked at him, his expression told me not to. Still, the question escaped my lips. Isabella, are we running from them or from you? He turns his head slightly, rainwater gleaming on his jaw. Lorenzo, both. Silence. Narration. That one word hit harder than any confession before it, because it meant he knew there was no safe side anymore. Hours passed. The rain softened, turning into a steady drizzle. The highway stretched endless and empty. Lorenzo's hand rested on the steering wheel, steady despite everything. But then I saw it, the faint reflection of headlights in the side mirror. Isabella, Lorenzo, someone's following us. He glances in the mirror. His jaw tightens. Lorenzo, don't look again. Keep your head down. Camera zooms out. Black SUV approaching fast. Tires hissing on wet pavement. Narration. The air changed. Adrenaline burned away every thought, every doubt. It was happening. Whoever they were, they'd found us. Lorenzo's voice was calm, but his eyes weren't. Lorenzo, hold on. Tires screech. The car swerves into a narrow forest road. Mud splashes across the windshield. Isabella, Lorenzo. Lorenzo, I see them. Gunshots echo, muffled pops through the rain. The rear window cracks. I screamed before I could stop myself. Isabella, shaking, who are they? Lorenzo, grim, people I once trusted. Camera cuts between their faces. Her terror, his focus. The storm outside flickers with lightning. Narration. It felt unreal, like a movie I'd somehow stepped into, where every mistake could mean the end. And yet, even as the bullets hit metal, even as fear tore through me, I wasn't afraid of him. Not anymore. The car jerks violently. Marco yells something from the front seat. A sharp turn, branches scraping metal. Then silence. The engine cut. We'd stopped somewhere deep in the woods. Marco, urgent, we lost them for now. Lorenzo, good. Get the car covered. No lights. Camera pans. The three of them step into the forest, breath visible in the cold air. The rain had stopped. The forest was alive with sounds. Dripping leaves, distant owls, the faint hum of danger still lingering. Lorenzo guided me by the hand, his voice low. Lorenzo, there's a cabin about a mile ahead. We'll rest there until sunrise. Her voice trembles. Isabella, and after that... He stops walking. Looks at her, the kind of look that holds both truth and regret. Lorenzo, after that, there's no plan. Music softens. Melancholy piano under the rain's faint return. Narration soft. I didn't ask for more. For once, not knowing felt safer than the truth. We reached the cabin just before dawn. A small, forgotten place swallowed by the forest. The smell of wet wood and cold air filled the room. Lorenzo lit a single candle. Its light flickered across his face, softening the lines of exhaustion and guilt. Isabella, quietly, you knew this would happen. Lorenzo, I hoped it wouldn't. Isabella, and now? He looked at me for a long time before answering. Lorenzo, now we survive. Long pause. The flame dances between them. He sat near the window, gun on the table, eyes never leaving the dark outside. I watched him, wondering if I'd ever really known who he was, or if the man I'd started to care for was just another mask he wore. But then, his voice broke the silence, low, almost fragile. Lorenzo, you should sleep. Tomorrow everything changes. She whispers back. Isabella, it already has. Music swells softly, carrying the emotional weight of their exhaustion and connection. Narration, final lines, slow and emotional. As I lay down on the cold floor beside the dying candle, I realized something. I wasn't afraid anymore, not of him, not of what waited outside. The only thing that truly scared me was what I was starting to feel. Chapter 10, The Truth Beneath the Fire. Soundscape. Faint crackle of firewood, wind brushing against the windows. Distant thunder echoes like a heartbeat in the dark. Narration, soft, tired, introspective. Dawn never truly came. The sky stayed gray, heavy and distant, as if the sun had forgotten how to rise. The candle had burned out hours ago, leaving only the smell of smoke and wax. Lorenzo hadn't slept. He sat near the window, his eyes fixed on the mist-covered trees, one hand resting on his gun, the other clenched around something in his pocket. I wanted to ask what he was thinking, but I already knew. He was waiting, not for safety, but for the past to find him. Soft piano note. Isabella moves quietly through the small cabin. Isabella, whispering, you should rest. He turns slowly, eyes hollow yet sharp. Lorenzo, I can't. Not while they're still out there. Isabella! Who are they, Lorenzo? You keep saying they, but I deserve to know. He hesitates. The silence stretches thin. Finally, he sighs, a deep, weary sound. Lorenzo, you're right. You deserve the truth. Camera zooms slowly on his face, the flickering fire casting uneven light. Narration. He took something from his jacket, a small, silver pendant. The same symbol I'd seen before, a circle crossed by 2 lines. Lorenzo, this was my family's mark. Before I ever became what they now call the boss, the symbol belonged to something much older, something hidden. Isabella frowns, voice shaking slightly. Isabella, I've seen it before. On that box. And on the letter Lucia gave me. He freezes, eyes widening. Lorenzo, Lucia gave you a letter? Isabella, she said someone was watching me. That I needed to leave before it was too late. His expression hardens, fear, not anger. Lorenzo, then it's already started. The fire pops, sparks floating into the air. The tension thickens. Narration. He stood and began pacing the room, the old floorboards groaning beneath his boots. Lorenzo, you think I chose this life? That I wanted the power, the blood, the fear? It wasn't like that. It began with your father. The words hit like a bullet. Isabella, shocked, my father. She laughs softly, disbelief mixed with dread. Isabella, my father was a teacher. He died when I was 9. Lorenzo shook his head slowly. Lorenzo, that's what you were told. But he wasn't just a teacher, Isabella. He was one of us, the last man who ever tried to destroy the very organization I now lead. Silence. The wind howls outside, rattling the cabin's door. Narration. For a moment I couldn't breathe. The world tilted, folding in on itself. Every memory, every quiet Sunday, every bedtime story suddenly felt like a lie. Isabella whispering, you're saying my father was like you? Lorenzo, no. He was better. He wanted out. He wanted to build a life for you, away from this world. But they found him before he could run. I was there that night. His voice cracks. He turns away, face shadowed by guilt. Lorenzo, he saved my life. I owed him everything. And when he was gone, I swore I'd protect what was left of him. Her voice breaks. Isabella, me. He nods, eyes shining with pain. Lorenzo, yes. You.